Hey, how's it going, guys? It's your boy Meteor Kaiser back again with yet another challenge run. Today we're going to be jumping into a bit of a different game, still going with the RPG sort of line of thinking. However, we're doing a new game to the channel, which is Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is immensely popular and it's just a classic in the RPG field. It's made by the same person that made DBZ, or at least the art style. Same with Dragon Quest. Akira Toriyama did the art style for all of those, and it shows in this game for sure. It is a classic. It really withstand the test of time, a game that's made in the late 90s. But anyway, today I'm not really here to shill the game, I'm here to more just play it. Now, before I jump into this, I'm just gonna quickly let you guys know I have not played this game in a very long time. So if I do things that may seem amateurish, that's probably because I haven't played this game since I was like, oh god, I must have been really young. Probably like 7 or 8, so I haven't touched this game since then. So a lot of the stuff that I do, I either look up or I just wander around aimlessly for a while. But we're going to be doing a starting equipment only run. So that basically means Chrono and his party are not able to equip any better items. We're sort of stuck with whatever we're given by default. For example, that wooden sword that Chrono has as a amateur swordsman, yeah, that's going to be sticking with him all game. But some of the later party members are going to be better because their starting equipment is considerably stronger for that point of the game, if that makes sense. As we go into this, I won't really be going over more of the obscure details like the side quest stuff. I'll just be focusing mainly on main story stuff. Just because if I spend too much time on the side quests, we'll be here forever. So without further ado, let's jump into Chrono Trigger. And as usual, guys, as we're jumping into this, I'm going to shill. If you haven't done so already, and you like my content, and you want me to keep posting good content, hopefully I think it's good, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It would really mean a lot to me, especially as I'm growing this channel. And of course, if you don't like my content later, you can always unsubscribe in the future. There's no penalty for you either way, so it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy. The game opens up with us in our little house. We name our character, and I'm going to go with default names for all of this. So Chrono, and our mom tells us about the Millennial Fair, the fair that only happens, well, once a millennia. So we give it a visit. We play a lot of the games there, and then we run into this girl who seems to have lost her pendant, and we assist her with getting her pendant back. And we learn out that her name is Marl. Now, there's a lot of things that you can be doing in this fair. The most common one will be fighting against Gato, who is this first sort of enemy of the game. He's like a practice robot to sort of get you into the swing of battling, and it's a good thing I used him because my controls were all messed up, but that's a personal issue. Anyway, there's like food scattered around. There's the pendant that Marl lost. There's this little girl who lost her cat. Now, if you help them out, it'll help you out in the long run. I kind of forgot about this, and we'll figure that out later. But for now, that's not very important. It'll be more important later. Let's just say actions have consequences. Anyway, after going through the fair for a little bit, we head to the very north, in which Luca, our childhood friend, shows us her new invention, which is a teleport gate thing. Now, the purpose of this teleport gate is literally only to teleport from point A to point B, but it ends up going haywire and Chrono is sent back into the past. Yeah. That's kind of the gist of the story, along with Marl, and except we got separated, we're gonna have to go find Marl ourselves, and it looks like we've been transported to this sort of medieval era, and everyone thinks that we're crazy. We're saying like, oh, where's the Millennial Fair? And it's like, this country hasn't been around for a millennia. So the inhabitants are very confused at us, and we're very confused. So we make our way towards this big looking castle in the middle, but we have to get ourselves through this little forest first. Guardia Forest has a lot of smaller enemies, and one thing I haven't mentioned yet, but there are two ways that you can play this game. You can either play it on a action based or a turn based. So this game plays very similarly to some of the newer Final Fantasy games, in which it's not completely turn based. It's more of whenever they get their action point back, basically whenever the bottom meter below Chrono's health bar gets full, he can attack again. And that's the same with the enemies. So if you don't attack, the enemies can just keep attacking until you make an action. So, but you can either set it to a turn-based system, where when your action bar gets full, the enemies can't do anything and they have to wait for you to make your action. I play it on the harder difficulty of those two, which means I have to constantly be paying attention and focusing. A lot of these enemies are pretty easy to deal with. Just use some of Chrono's basic attacks, like his little whirlwind cyclone thingy, and just hit away with your regular attack. Early game is going to be pretty easy for us, specifically because they're expecting you to have the starting equipment this early, not so much later on. So it's going to go from an easy to a difficult playthrough, essentially. So the first 30% of the game is basically a breeze, for the most part. Anyway, we make our way to the castle. We find out that the queen of this era looks exactly like Marl, Leanne. Basically, the queen is not here, and Marl has sort of taken over her identity by accident. Meaning she was sort of forced into this shit. And it turns out that Marl is actually Princess Nadia, who is the current heir of the kingdom, I guess. Princess of the kingdom. After we learn that the real queen has been kidnapped, Luca ends up joining us. She said that she would. It's just she had to figure out how to get through and stabilize the portal. So now we have our second companion, Luca. Her second main companion, because Marl kind of temporarily joined us. Now Luca's gimmick, she uses fire. She has a lot of, she could use like a flamethrower. She shoots a pop gun type thing, kind of like Jeff from Earthbound. Anyway, after making our way to the cathedral, we have a little mini boss fight with some Nagaets. And just as we're about to finish up, this mysterious frog-looking guy jumps down and helps us out. And his name is quite literally Frog. They weren't very creative, but we're okay with this because Frog is an absolute beast of a character. Frog is kind of, I want to say a jack of all trades, mainly focusing on offense. He can heal, he can attack, he can use magic. He's basically a very good all-around character. In order to progress, we basically have to hit that little organ at the cathedral, and that'll open up a room at the back. There's this giant little section that we have to go through. We get to use Frog for the first time, and he is very strong. He can knock out most of the enemies with one hit, barring these... again, I don't know the names of half these enemies, so you're just going to have to go off description. The turtle-looking guys. Anyway, we eventually are able to clear out this area, and we run into what is our first official boss fight. It is the Chancellor who ended up actually kidnapping the Queen, but it turns out that the Chancellor is not who you think he is. The Chancellor is indeed a creature called the Yakra. Now, the Yakra has 920 HP, so pretty big for this point in the game. He has a normal attack that does about 40 to 50 damage, and then he has a little counter attack that happens every time that he takes damage, which sucks. However, the way to get around this is if you don't want to take the damage. Well, I just took the damage and I just sucked it up and used potions. However, I would recommend not doing that. I'd recommend just waiting for the Yakra to get really close to one of your characters and then you can attack with them. But to be honest, I don't think it's that hard of a fight. Like 10 to 20 damage is not really much to us considering we have around 100 HP per character. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. There's a bunch of strategies that you can go through this. However, I just went with the tried and true bash it till it's dead. And to be honest, I do that strategy a lot because there's like wiki pages and stuff that I use and it has like strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 3, and I'm just like, all right, let's just bash it till it dies. I got enough potions, and plus I'm not spending my money on anything else in this game, so because I can't buy equipment, so I might as well spend it all on potions and revives, which are called Athenian waters, which kind of suck because they only heal 50 HP. It is what it is. Anyway, after we defeat the Yakra, we return the Queen back to the castle, and we're able to leave back through the Truce Canyon where we first came in. We will arrive back in the present, but not everything is sunshine and roses. Because once we go back to the castle, we'll get arrested. We get arrested by the current Chancellor because he wants someone to pin the blame on for Marl's disappearance. So he basically says, hey, why the fuck did you leave with the princess? And so we get sort of put under the bus for that. And this is where those decisions I was talking about can help or hurt you. If you steal the lunch, if you don't help out the girl, if you take the pendant without talking to Marl first, all of these small things will basically push people to give you a guilty verdict. Now, it doesn't matter. The verdict in the end doesn't matter if you get a guilty verdict or not guilty verdict, but it'll give you some items after. If the more positive things that you do, the more ethers you'll get. So basically, for the best outcome, you need to rescue the little girl's cat, don't eat the lunch, don't drag Marl away from the candy booth, don't sell her pendant, talk to her before picking up her pendant, tell the truth during the trial, and admit you started it and stole something. And if you stole something, admit it. Say you weren't tempted by the fortune at all, not even a little bit. So you can get up to 6 ethers if you do this. I only got 1 because I only did one good thing, which was not lie. But it is what it is. Anyway, in standard prison sort of formula, we start a prison break. It's just us by ourselves though. Thankfully, to compensate for that, the enemies are not too hard. Now, once we reach sort of the end point, we meet up with Luca, but we have to deal with a boss fight. Da-da-da, yay, we love boss fights. We are fighting our second boss, the Dragon Tank, which has 3 different HPs, 600 for the head, 266 for the body, and 208 for the wheel. Now, the thing you're going to want to deal with first is the head, because if you don't deal with the head, it's going to repair about 75 HP to all other parts. So take care of the head first, and then you can either, I say take care of the head and then take care of the body. The wheels will basically, if you take care of the wheels, it'll stop him from ramming you, and the ramming does about 40 damage to everyone. However, I would just honestly say bum rush the body after you deal with the head. The head's very important though, because if you don't deal with the head, you're not going to be able to win. So, but again, take it at your own pace, do whatever way you want, but that's just what I did. All right, after that, we basically get chased down, but we escape into the future this time. It's very dreary and all kinds of fucked up. We basically have to we just make our way through the future, fighting against all these enemies, and eventually we reach the Aeris Dome, in which we have our third boss fight, the Guardian. Now, this one's pretty easy, it's a very simple strategy to follow. Now, the Guardian itself has 1200 HP, and the bits on the side have 200. Definitely go ahead and focus on the bits first, and then deal with the Guardian itself, because the bits themselves are going to do counterattacks, which are pretty annoying. There's a little timer. If you defeat both bits, there's a timer that pops up saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All that means is just when he's gonna bring back more bits in. But by this point, you also have Marl, who joined up right before you jumped in the future. So with the 3 of you, as long as you focus fire each of the bits and then attack the Guardian itself, the Guardian doesn't really do much damage. So as long as the bits are dead, the Guardian can basically not touch you at all. So just keep rinsing and repeating slowly, and you should be good. Now, next, there's a couple of options. You can either completely progress through, or you can do what I did, which is head into the sewer. And this will help give me a little bit of experience, because I want to grind a bit, because no equipment is kind of annoying. But anyway, this area is just a quick little thing. It's just a few enemies that you can fight, some items that you can get, and a mid-boss that you can fight. Sir Crawley, who has 500 HP. He's pathetically easy, so you should be pretty good with that. We make our way through yet another section, that being Lab 32, and we are basically able to have a little race, which sounds weird. We get a key for the motorbike back in the Aeris Dome after defeating the Guardian, and to cross it without having to deal with any of the enemies, we basically have to race against this guy named Johnny, who's basically a human jet bike. So the strategy for this is pretty simple. You have 3 boosts that you can use. Don't use the boosts until you're near the goal, and then just spam them, and you should win. Because you're going to basically, no matter how fast you go, you're going to swip between him going faster, you going faster, him going faster, you going faster. So if you just use all the boosts at the end, you should be chill. And that'll basically allow you to skip an entire section, and you'll make your way over to the Proto Dome. Now, the Proto Dome is pretty cool because you get your next party member. You run into a deactivated robot who Luca is able to repair. And guess what we named the robot? Robo. Yeah, Robo. Anyway, I take Luca out of my party and swap it with Robo, because Robo is a little better. Robo has... I didn't really go over Marl either, huh? Let me go over both of them now that I think about it. Okay, so Robo is very standard type robot things. He has a laser beam, he has rocket punch. He kind of reminds me of Android 16 in that sense. And very small healing, but he has a very strong AoE called like laser disc or something. Laser spin, something like that. Very, very good. And Marl is also really good because she is a healer. She can partner up with pretty much anyone with her aura ability and do a party-wide healing. For example, a combo attack between her and Chrono would be Aura Swirl, one of our biggest and best moves for a while, which will put Cyclone and Aura together, and basically it'll heal everyone, which is pretty nice. But anyway, we make our way through the factory. We run into the R series, which were Robo's old companions. Each of them has only 150 experience, and you can only fight them with Marl and Chrono because Robo's put out a commission for this. However, each of them are sitting in lines of 3, so I just cyclone repeatedly, and I'm good. After that, we make our way to the next area, which is actually just called the End of Time, which is where this old man and this weird guy named Specchio, who teaches us magic, are at. And this basically is a hub area which lets us go to other points in history, and so we use that to go to the next one that we haven't been to, which is 1000 AD, but not the medieval AD, the Medina Village AD. Medina Village is a sort of magic-based place, which you run into a house of what would have been enemies, but basically it's just people in this area don't like humans. So there is some equipment that you can buy, however, shit's so expensive, and you'll be able to get it cheaper if you were to use equipment later on in the game. Our next location that we want to go is to the Hecaran Cave, and it's just a simple cave. You just go through, get a bunch of items, and then you run into what is our first, I consider, roadblock, because this guy was very difficult. Hecaran. He has 1200 HP, very, very strong. And his gimmick is he'll enter a stance of counterattack, and when he's in that stance, he will hit the whole party for 90 to 100 water damage. And we have about 200 HP per character here, so not a good idea to attack him when that happens. However, when we went through, we got a couple of we got some magic from Specchio back in the End of Time. So now our boy Chrono can use lightning magic, and Marl can use ice magic. Only humans, or only alive things can use magic. So Robo can't use magic, for example, because Robo is not alive, it's a robot. His attacks are very powerful. You just got to go through it very slowly. Make sure you're using Aura Wheel a lot, or whatever healing abilities you have. After you're done with this fight, you're going to be heading back to the medieval times. We're heading back here, and we learn that Frog has sort of disappeared, which is not that great. We learn that the king has been injured after fighting against Magus or Magus. I'm going to call him Magus because Magus sounds better. But I guess you can kind of pronounce him however you want. Anyway, he is considered, I guess you can consider him a demon lord. You notice all the monsters back in 1000 AD? Yeah, they were under Magus's control. A world where humans didn't exist, or whatever bullshit that was. Anyway, it's sort of, we think that Magus is working to try and resurrect Lavos. And Lavos is the basic overall enemy of this game. The whole reason we're going through all of these different points in time is to stop his birth, I guess, or to see what we can do to prevent his existence from coming to fruition. He is a cataclysmic enemy that burrowed himself in the earth many years ago, and will basically reawaken right before the future time, so 1999 AD. And so the goal of the game is basically to stop him. And to do that, we're gonna have to go and deal with some of the Magus's army. We're defending the bridge that leads into the human realm, which is being attacked by one of Magus's generals, Ozzy, who doesn't really do anything himself, but he sends his minions to attack us. There we have a little boss, slightly more difficult, but not too bad, Zombor. Zombor has 960 HP on the upper half and 800 on the lower. And each half of his body is immune to different things. So the upper half is immune to fire and lightning, so hit it with Marl or Robo. And his bottom half is immune to ice, so I basically use Chrono to deal with the bottom. Sleep will not work on this guy either, so don't even worry about that. But just, smack away. He's not too bad of a boss, you just gotta keep up healing. After we defeat him, we're able to make our way into the Cursed Woods, which has some interesting enemies, but nothing too difficult. And at the end of it, we actually meet up with our boy Frog. And so he has basically lost all of his confidence. And so we have to basically restore his confidence by going to the Denadoro Mountains. Oh man, I hate these mountains, because there are some annoying enemies. These guys with hammers are basically complete damage tanks unless you have Luca with you, and I don't have Luca with me, and I didn't realize that till the end of the area because I don't know what I'm doing. Because if you light their hammers on fire, they basically die pretty easily, but if you don't, you're stuck there for a while. Anyway, we make our way through the area, and we run into a relatively annoying boss fight. Yay! We have Masamune, but they're two different characters, Masa and Mune. They represent the spirit of the sword, the Masamune, And by themselves, they're not very difficult. They do between like 20 and 40 damage, and they've got 1000 HP each, so it's not too bad. However, the annoying part is when they combine to become Masamune. Again, there's a lot of parallels I see between, Albo and Kado in the Dragon Ball Z special with Tarble. I see a lot of parallels here. They turn into this giant grotesque creature who's actually very, very powerful and scary. This is when the real fight begins. Now he has 3600 HP. He can chop for about 70 damage. A whirlwind for about 70. After storing tornado energy, they'll say the line pain, which does about 120 to everyone. And then a counterattack that looks like Chrono Slash, which will hit all characters in a line for about 40 to 50. It occurs when charging the tornado attack, but is negated by Kronos' slash ability. So basically, no matter what you do, you're going to get hit. By this point, we have mid potions, which are pretty great. They heal 200 HP. It kind of makes Masamune a little easier, but Masamune is still really difficult. You just got to get through those types of things. I have Robo, Marl, and Chrono in my party. It's definitely a harder boss fight, but as long as you keep up with the same strategy I've been talking about this entire time, you should be chilling. Anyway, next our job is to repair the Masamune, which has been broken. And we have to head back to the end of time, and it's important to keep fighting Specchio whenever Chrono builds another 10 levels, because you'll always get something new from him. So it's important to check that. Or now we have a use of going to 65 million BC, because if we went before, we wouldn't have been able to do much, but now we can. We run into a bunch of enemies in which someone named Ayla will come and help us out. Now, as you could probably assume, Ayla is going to be our next party member, but for now she's just assisting us. Anyway, we go back to our village and we have a little festival, very prehistoric, you know. Anyway, we have to make our way through the forest maze into the Reptite lair, and this lair has a few annoying enemies. Besides from just the Reptites themselves, there's also these guys that, they're not fun to deal with. You basically have to shock them with lightning in order for them to take normal damage. However, this area isn't too bad because we got Ayla. Now, Ayla is our strongest party member considering her base equipment is a lot higher than everyone else's. So I make sure I use her a lot. She is a very offensive character. She's probably the most offensive one that we have, but definitely stronger than Chrono and Frog, but still not terrible. Anyway, in the Reptite lair, once we basically make our way through, we have to fight against Nizbel, who has 4200 HP, and he's weak to lightning. Really not that hard of a fight. Very, very powerful, and I did get knocked out close to death almost twice, but strength is just all it has. You just have to keep hitting him with lightning. Ayla will keep bashing away and just have Marl keep healing. I really wish I could use charms. If your Ayla has cat attack, use it. After being attacked enough times with electric attacks, it'll basically store and release whatever electrocution energy it has, which will do about 100 to 200 damage. But it's still worth to keep using a lightning because it's going to be very, very strong, because the rest of his attacks don't do too much. So basically it's a double-edged sword. If you want to hit him with lightning and get him killed quickly, you'll just have to be prepared to heal. Alright, we part from Ayla and we head back into the end of time. After heading back to the end of time, we make our way to 1000 AD real quick to talk to Melchior to have him reforge the Masamune, and then we can make our way to 600 AD to finally deal with Magus. But first, before we end up dealing with him, we have to go talk to Frog, and we learn a bit about his backstory. He used to be this man named Glenn, who was a friend of the strongest knight of the kingdom, Cyrus, and Magus turned Glenn into a frog and killed Cyrus. And so with that little plot point being said, what's cool now is, guess what Frog's default weapon is? The Masamune. And we didn't change his equipment at all. So technically we could go back here to his starting equipment, but I decided to scam the system. I haven't touched his equipment. So whatever equipment has been put on by the game, that's what we're going with. Scamming the system, loopholes, yay! But anyway, we are able to make our way into the castle of Magus himself and start dealing with his minions. There are 3 fights that we have to go against here. First is Slash. Slash is probably the second easiest of the 3 generals that we have to fight against, because Slash doesn't have any special gimmicks. He's just strong. He has 2 phases, one where he has 3200 HP and one where he has 5200 HP. His first phase, super simple, doesn't really do much. His second fight is a lot stronger because he actually uses his sword. In the first phase, the maximum amount of damage he can do is about 90 to one person and 60 to everyone. In his second fight, he can go anywhere from about 50 to 150 damage, But the good thing is the only sort of AoE attack he has is something that resembles Chrono's slash attack. Everything else is single targeting, so that makes life a lot easier, and slash is not that difficult. Now here we go on to the second fight, which is much harder. We're up against Flea now. Flea is a magic user who is very gender ambiguous, best way to say it. Anyway, Flea has 4,120 HP, who can do a lot of annoying things. Very many status problems, right? This is going to be the first instance of really dealing with status problems, and the first instance of me actually wiping out. I had to fight against Flea twice because their magic destroyed me. They can use poison, they can blind, inflict chaos, turn characters on each other, sleep. Literally every status element can be used. And we don't have very good ways to negate that because there are some charms in the game that'll block like poison, block chaos, block sleep, all of that stuff. However, we can't do any of that because we can't equip accessories because that's equipment. So we're kind of up shit creek without a paddle. However, I guess my strategy, I didn't really have a strategy per se. I just more stuck my nose to the grindstone and just kept doing the same strategy that I've been doing this whole time, except this time I do a lot more combo attacks with Frog and Chrono, and I sort of let Marl just use mid potions to heal everyone up. I'll also remove status ailments as quickly as I can. The good thing is you can't have multiple status ailments in this game, so one will overwrite the other. Like say for example, if you're asleep, poison will overwrite that. After that, we're ended up dealing with the easiest of the three, Ozzy, because Ozzy isn't really a fight. Ozzy is such a weird boss because all you have to do for Ozzy is attack the switches around him instead of attacking Ozzy itself, because Ozzy encases himself in ice. Ozzy is basically the textbook definition of a pussy. 1000 HP, you just attack the switches on the sides and it'll defeat him. The easiest boss fight of the game by far. After that is all said and done, we make our way towards the apex of the castle, in which we have the run killer. Magus himself is an absolute fucking pain in the ass to deal with. Holy shit. Okay, so the highest amount of HP anyone's had at this point is 6,666. That was definitely on purpose. Magus's gimmick is his weakness changes depending on what magic he last used. The magic that he has access to is Lightning 2, Ice 2, and Fire 2. Lightning 2 does about 150, Ice 2 does 100 to everyone, and Fire 2 does 150 to everyone. Then he has single targeting attack, Shadow Bomb, which does 150, Dark Matter, which does 250 to everyone, and then Geyser or HP down, which does about 70 to everyone, slowly draining them of their HP. And last he has a little slashing attack that does about 75 damage. 100% the hardest fight so far. When he attacks with each different magic, it'll say like a little text on the screen that says Ice 2 or whatever absorbs all attacks except blah blah blah. So very important to have Frog in your party, and I just bring Marl and Chrono because I know I can keep myself alive. So Frog is going to be the main damage dealer here, and basically the only times I can attack with magic is when he basically has a vulnerability to lightning or ice or water, because water and ice are like the same thing in this game. The main reason we want Frog along is because the Masamune, if you attack with it, will decrease his magic defense, and that'll make him more vulnerable to magic attacks, which is great for us. The more I do it, the more damage. Like I'm doing about 200 to 300 per attack with Frog's water, because that's what Frog has access to. But it is such a difficult fight. It's very methodical. I do the same shit every turn. I will Aura Whirl, try and abuse his whatever barrier he has, and then attack with other characters that aren't healing, aka Frog. So most of the time it's just going to be Frog doing literally all the damage, and almost every turn I will have to heal with Chrono and Marl. That's what these later fights end up being. They're just more methodical than anything. It's a slow and painful fight, and I have to use a couple of ethers, and I get very low on HP at certain points. Basically also when he starts casting a spell, he'll charge his Dark Matter attack, which is the really strong one. Just when that happens, make sure you're max HP. That's pretty simple. Shadow Bomb is the one thing that you want to use the most, either that with a slashing attack, because those are just one person attack. So another key thing is Marl using haste at the beginning of the match. Haste is a very, very, very useful spell. Haste will increase the rate in which you can attack. Use that on Frog as much as you humanly can, hopefully on everyone. But it does last for a majority of the fight, which is good. Anyway, we're finally able to take down Magus. Holy crap, and then he'll inform us that he was only summoned Lavos. He did not create Lavos himself. But thank you guys so much for watching part 1. I know this was a little impromptu. It's a series that I haven't played much of, unlike Pokemon or Fire Emblem where I kind of know what the fuck I'm doing. This is like, oh god, how do I play? Oh god. And like, also I hate being put on a timer on attacks because I need time to think about certain things, because if I don't have time to think, I'm just going to do stupid attacks. I'm just going to hit the attack button and hope and pray. Attack and heal, attack and heal. It's tried and true, but it, for the most part, has been working for me. So until it doesn't, I don't know, I'm going to keep going with that. But yeah, so far, the other thing to mention in this game is you have tabs, right? And these are like permanent stat increasers. You get them for doing certain things. You get them periodically throughout the game, defeating certain enemies. I have been given almost all of them to Chrono because I want Chrono to stay strong, because he's technically the weakest character because he started off with the weakest equipment. I want my Chrono to be pretty decent, make up for his lack of equipment with his stats. So that was the goal here. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. My name has been Meteor Kaiser, and I will see you all in the next part. But until then, as always, peace.